Good morning. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, drags, despicables, garbage, chumps, Neanderthals, semi-fascists, maggots, weirdos, and of course those dog-faced pony soldiers. By the way, I saw when there was a somebody on X who said, like, what is Biden's most famous quote? Right? Because he really hasn't said, there's been no, 1,000-year journey. It starts with a single step and all that kind of stuff. And the winner was dog-faced pony soldiers. So.
Yeah, we don't get these memorable things like the shining city upon a hill, right? Or
Right.
anything.
Ted White is gone, and he is not coming through that door.
Yeah, the eloquence of some past presidents that's gone. Yeah, that would have been a hard thing to pick out because I mean, what has Biden done? What has he really said? That's
right.
That's interesting. All right,
They really don't have the great speech writers anymore either.
That's true.
I mean, you got to go back to Clinton to get a decent speech writer. The Bush people were horrible.
Yeah,
it was always saccharine. They were always Bush people. They tried to create the moment, right? It's like you just write a good speech and the moment emerges, right? You can't create that. It has to happen on its own.
All right. So now that you mentioned that, the thought comes to my head, about that is how much of political speech writing, presidential speech writing, will be influenced by artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of my work now, you run through it. They run through it like Chat GPT or whatever.
Yeah.
I think I don't know because it renders. I mean, with Trump, it doesn't matter what the speechwriter puts down. It's going to be what it's going to be. Every once in a while, he reads a speech. State of the Unions, he generally reads pretty close to reading the speech.
Yeah.
But most of the time, he's freewheeling and, no one wrote down anything and he just goes for 2.5 hours, right? And he's kind of got a formula. So like his rally speeches, I guess if you go to a lot of the rallies, you recognize some themes. But yeah, it's going, and what does that kind of writing, what does that do to writing? Chat GPT and its competitors, it makes it, I don't want to say bland, but it's like you're cooking food and you say, okay, we're not going to put any spices on this, right? We're just going to heat it up, right? You get what you get.
Yeah, I mean, I need to spend more time learning how AI works really. I mean, I guess I haven't really given it a whole lot of thought, and part of the key of that is finding the right prompt so it can give you something worthwhile, because I've toyed with it and I'm like, what is this? Trump, speech writing for Trump probably is a challenge in and of itself. And artificial intelligence is really based on learning, right? It has to have something to learn from to be able to come up with something. Trump, because as you mentioned, he does so much freewheeling. I mean, what can they do? I mean, you can't really feed it written stuff because he doesn't stick to a script per se, except for maybe the State of the Union. You probably would have to get all of these rallies and speeches and whatever, and then feed the audio in of that. And I don't know, I think even for a computer, that might confuse them a little bit. I mean, right? The computer, in this world, can you see this computer is like, it just kind of like blows up or something because like I can't make
this like line comes out.
I can't learn from this. What is this guy doing? What is this guy saying? There's, it's like everything is different from speech. There's, so Trump is so unique that AI and Trump, that would just be a weird marriage.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting. I mean, I constantly think about, how AI is being used and is changing the nature of a lot of jobs and things like that. Journalism jobs. I mean, they've been they've been under pressure and, under attack from the internet for the last, roughly 2 decades. And now you have AI. I mean, AI is even a threat to Google and the search engine,
Right.
with that, right? Search
Well,
engine.
yeah. So, what Google wants to do is make it where, when you Google something, instead of getting a list of links to learn more, it just wants to give you a summary. Like, we read all this stuff for you. Here's the deal. Well, I mean, I think, having been in the business that we're in, you can spot the big problem with that, right? You have one person summarizing things. Those summaries are going to look like that person's worldview, right? And so, that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah, so it's going to be we're still kind of in this learning scope time of this. I mean, and you said competitors. I mean, there are lots of competitors. I mean, we started with Chat GPT. Elon's got one. Google's developing it. I mean, there are loads of these things that are out there that are competing. And part of this now is that they are trying to create search engine functions to compete with Google and to kind of take away Google's bread and butter business.
Right.
So we may be seeing a completely different world in that respect at some point. I
And
guess
did you see this? It was out this week. I'm not sure when the interview occurred, but Mark Andreessen was on with Joe Rogan, and he was talking about the Biden administration, all these tech guys. They called them in for a big tech summit, and they're like, don't even think about investing in AI. Venture people, just don't put your money there, because it's going to be like 3 companies, and government's going to regulate it, and there's no one else is going to be able to get in the business, and nobody else is going to be able to act on this at all. So just stay out of this business. We're going to control the whole thing. We've already got it set up. And so Rogan said, so what did you do? And anybody who tries to get in it, we're going to knock them down. And so Rogan said, well, what did you do? What do you do when you hear that in a meeting like that? He goes, you go out and you endorse Donald Trump. Right? They walked right out of there saying these guys cannot be in power anymore. Right? And that's why a big part of why the tech people went for Trump, gave him a lot of money and voted for him. And, that sort of sucked a lot of support out of her effort. Right.
You know what blew my mind about this, when you just mentioned Andreessen. So, the company is Andreessen Horowitz, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Horowitz is David Horowitz's son.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, talk about going in a completely different field than his dad, right?
Yeah.
And everything like that. But by doing so, and they've been extremely successful, he can go in there and fund a bunch of these things that that his dad would want him to fund, even, right?
Yeah.
I mean, causes and whatever, and candidates. And so, I mean, I can understand that. I mean, I think, the government, the Biden administration, just, went way too far, in all of this, that, tech is looking, take some of the shackles off. I mean, I thought we were still a country that had free speech and not censorship. And look what you're doing. You're just, every which way we turn, you're just knocking us down. So, I mean,
there's some big blows that they took there, right? So, big tech was 100% against Trump, a year ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it didn't end up being that way at all at the end, right? You now have, like, Elon Musk is now calling himself the George Soros of the center, right? Not the right, of the center, right? Because the left went so bat guano crazy to the left that what was the right is now the center. So we have weapons in our arsenal that we've never had before.
Yeah, so I was just thinking. So today it's been a month, right, since the election, basically. So, we've look at what has happened. What's happened in the tech world since Donald Trump won. Tesla stock is up somewhere in the neighborhood of 40%. Elon Musk is worth a ton of money more than he was before.
Yeah.
He had on paper, Elon has more than made up for all the money he poured into the Trump campaign. Just
Right.
just a huge gob of
Many
money,
times over. Yeah.
many times over. Bitcoin hits $100,000. Okay,
Yeah.
look, crypto is like way out of my league. Okay, this is something for someone else who really likes to live a little more on the edge and has understanding about how to play that game and everything like that. But it is just unfathomable to see that happen. I mean, if you had invested in crypto when it in Bitcoin when it first came out, I mean, you're talking like single digits, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
double digits, and then triple digits, and then for a long time, it had languished in like the $5,000 range. Then it goes up to like 30, and it comes back down. Then it had a
Yeah,
nice
there's
run
a
to like
bunch of comeback. It's not a. I was going to make the point. It's not a straight line deal. There was a lot
no.
of up and down in this.
Yeah, and part of this deal is that the election of Donald Trump has just infused the whole crypto group there, because SEC chairman Gary Gensler will step down, and a pro crypto SEC chair will probably is going to come
Yeah,
in.
it's been named. I think they.
Right, and Donald Trump has already said things very positive about crypto before. So he has boosted that industry, and so that it's going to be this is becoming a very different world. I mean, we're seeing the stock market continuing to rise. I mean, it's had a great year overall, even before the election in general. Though it had been kind of limited into a number of companies. It wasn't necessarily what we call broad based, but since the election, that has broadened out. The more industries have felt more comfortable, more confident that things are going in the right direction. You still are going to always have pockets where it's not working, where industries. But even with the tariffs, which scared a lot of traders on Wall Street about imports and expensive things like this, a lot of companies are either now trying to import stuff now to get ahead of potential tariffs. There's no definitive answer. Is like, we don't know. Trump has talked about tariffs, but this is kind of like, go to Canada, go to Mexico, talk about tariffs, and what do? Can we talk about immigration?
Yeah, can we fix your problem and maybe not
Yeah,
have the tariffs?
yeah.
Okay, I think that's right.
It's working, right? So that is working. The negotiating tactic of that is working. It's like they don't want tariffs. I mean, we don't. I mean, from people who will actually see the tariffs, on the stickers of prices of the goods that we buy, we don't necessarily want tariffs either. To see goods go up there, by 25 or 30% or whatever they are. But Trump he's effectively talked using tariffs into getting Mexico and Canada to say, we're going to work on this border problem.
Yeah, that's right.
And
And we're going to work on, in Canada, like it's, the northernmost 100 miles of the U.S., right? You go 100 miles south of the U.S.-Canadian border all the way across the country. Most common thing you find is dairy farms, right? Dairy and chicken farms, because it's kind of farming you can do in real cold weather, right? And Canada, they have like 235% tariff on American dairy products. Okay, well, Trump is not going to put up with that anymore. They're going to either stop that, or they're going to see tariffs that make their stuff unaffordable here, right? And that's a major thing. That's a major problem for Trudeau, who faced an election in October and right now is in the low 20s in the polls. So he's got to solve this, and he can't fold, and he can't stand up to he can't not stand up to he can't cooperate with Trump, and he can't really fold. So he's in a real box over this.
Yeah. So this is quite interesting to see how this is going with this. And now, I mean, we had this period of time where they were talking about tariffs, and it seems to have kind of pushed to the back right now. It'll probably come back up once Trump takes over, and once we see how a cabinet really comes into play, and the economic team and once they actually start doing things and trying to make policy. So the tariffs aren't going away, but so far, even before he's taken office, it's already been used as a successful negotiating tactic.
Right.
So, all right, just the bizarre off question. All right, I thought about this morning only because my wife, she's like, she goes, "Thank you for putting the toilet paper the right way." So, are you are you an over or an under?
Over.
Over. Okay, so she's over. I'm under. So my whole, I don't know, I guess I grew up like that. I didn't really pay that much attention, but I think that's the way I grew up. The thing is that, so my strategy in the house is that if there's a bathroom that she's going to be using, and if I am restocking the toilet paper, I make sure it's over. If I know that she's probably not going to be using it, it's under. So we have
this like in a marriage, you just kind of like work all this stuff out, like you're just this real elaborate little curvy highways that you're on to just get everybody what they need. It's pretty cool. It's part of the human experience.
It's funny. I mean, here I am at 39 and a half years into this marriage, and she's still going like, "Thank you for doing that."
Yeah. And that's the other thing is like, a reward to praise the behavior you want. That's the thing comes up in coaching. When they do something good, if I tell you drive to the basket and you drive to the basket and the shot gets blocked, I'm definitely over. There you go.
I'm losing this poll. Yeah, I don't know. It's just funny how that works out. It's the things that you learn and work on and find in a marriage is like, when you get praise, sometimes praise can be doesn't come all that often. So you're like, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I don't know, part of it too is like you grow after time. You grow so used to each other that there's expectations. You just kind of do these things. So you're not going to be praised for doing that. I will get criticized for not hand washing some of the bigger dishes. And I know I am a little bit lazy on that, but I kind of have in my mind, like, okay, I see them piling up. I am going to get to them at this point in time. Well, my wife is finally at a certain point in time. She is kind of like, I've had it. This is it. I'm going to go wash them.
Her point of time comes before yours.
Know that I'm displeased. So
her time is up came before your time is up.
Right.
So then it becomes your time.
Yeah. If I say I was planning to get to that, which was honestly true, she's kind of like more of a kind of like, yeah, right, So I have, that's something I still have to work on after all these years with all that. The other thing too is just that I don't know what the weather is like over there, on your neck of the woods, but it's really windy over here.
Yeah.
And this morning when I walked out, to go to the gym, so that's 4:30. We had some snow flurries, and I looked, and I'm like, it's like 40 degrees. What's going on here? And I didn't think much of it. Drove to the gym, but when I came home, since Montgomery County fairly well, so I came home and I'm up in Gaithersburg off of Clopper Road, and I come home just basically taking 270 and then getting back on Sam Ige and get back to Shady Grove and back to my home. I passed 2 snowplows sitting on the road waiting, and I'm thinking like, did I miss something? Did
only in Maryland, man?
Is Montgomery County expecting 6 inches of snow and I didn't hear about the apocalypse coming?
You can just see it being Maryland. There's some union contract somewhere that says you have to put out a snowplow if 4 weathercasters use the word snow, or something like that.
I'm like, okay, I want to know, like, how much money did that just cost me? Right?
Yeah.
To have those guys sitting, in their trucks waiting until they got called off. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. The time, doesn't it kind of work out too? Sometimes the times you really need them, you can't find them.
Right.
They're not.
You didn't pour any sand today that we might need for an actual snowstorm, did you?
Right. Yeah.
We wouldn't want to run out later.
Amazing. I will. I want one last thing before we get to the news too. It's like, so at the shopping center, this is a nothing story here, but about, I don't know, 10 days ago, I pulled up into this thing, and they have these really high lights in the parking lot. So it's part of a strip shopping center, but they were strobing. They were basically flashing, which is either, I don't know if it's an electrical problem or if it's basically saying the lights are about to burn out, right? And it's been going on for like up to 2 weeks. I'm like, doesn't anybody who operates a shopping center, can't they fix this? Because it's, my eyes are like,
Well, I mean, like stroke people and stuff, that's bad for them,
Yeah, well, I was thinking about those television shows where they say, like, they give you those warnings all the time about what they have in there. I mean, like sex violence, but sometimes they say like strobing visual effects or whatever, harmful effects.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, yeah, because I'm driving, and all of a sudden there's like 4 of these lights poles, and they're just like strobing, and I'm like, it's like really off-putting to actually just drive into the parking lot with that. So I'm like, I go and I thought, okay, I'm going to investigate, and it's like, who owns this shopping center? So I go on there, and I find that where the shopping center is. They've actually got, like, people have been rating it on Google.
Mm-hmm.
So I go onto that page, and I said, nice little shopping center, got some good little shops, but they've got these parking lights that are strobing. Fix it. So this was like 2 or 3 days ago. Today I drive in, the lights are off, and in their place are these high intensity lights, kind of like the ones like 4, and they've got a generator on them, and they're kind of like the ones you see when they're doing highway work at night.
Right.
And there's like one for every area for where the lights were strobing before. And I'm like, wow, we've gone from strobing lights to this super bright light all of a sudden. I'm thinking, like, I wonder if it had anything to do. I don't know. Did somebody finally read that post? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll take that over strobing.
It's moving mountains over there in Maryland. Get those shopping centers.
Investigative journalism to go find out who owned that shopping center.
That's right.
Bugging the heck out of me. So
we were talking about that the other day. It's like, as journalists, right? You learn, you have all these little skills that, like, otherwise they're fairly useless, right? But you can look up stuff. You know who to call about stuff, right? In a way that most people don't know.
Yeah. All right. So now on to other news. So there's a few things going on internationally. We were just, we're seeing the French government has collapsed. So they are now going to be scrambling. I mean, the far right and I guess the far left have basically forced put a vote out there, and so Parliament, they need a new prime minister. I'm not sure where Macron is going to find that. And then we have South Korea, which was even a bigger surprise to me. Where the president, that to me, this was wacky. I mean, I asked my wife about this. It's just like, he declares martial law, and then they lift it after the parliament says, no, sir. And so they're a little bit of turmoil, and all of this. I mean, what do you take, from these two countries and some of this unease that's going on here?
People are fed up with leftist government all over the world. It's stagnant. It's out of ideas. It is stifling. It's stultifying, and it's I think that's the one thing that connects all these things together. Trump winning, France, and South Korea. It's like you have a left-leaning guy, and his thing was to instead of dealing with what the dissent was about, it was to crush the dissent, which is that's how leftists operate. They don't let you dissent. And he overstepped, and they took him down over it. And I love that, like, the American leftists are trying to make it, well, the South Korean guy did the Trump thing, and we better be ready to do that to Trump too. It's like, this doesn't have to do with Trump. This is you're on the wrong side of history here. All right. These are Bidenistas. These are your people trying to stay in office. Right. As I don't know, they're talking about, they want to challenge Trump again on 14th Amendment grounds. You're part of insurrection. You're not eligible to be president. And there's supposedly something supposed to happen on December 12th that they're going to try to take him down and make him where he can't be president. Well, we were talking about this earlier. When it got to the point where, states were certifying results and turning in their votes and so forth, and Biden was elected in 2020, then it became, if you're going to overturn this result, you're going to be looking at major upheaval in the country. Yes, the election was almost certainly stolen, but your remedies for that, what we learned is the remedy for that is to not let it happen in the first place, right? And that's what you saw this year. Republican Party made sure they didn't get ripped off a whole lot. They did still a little bit, but they stifled the main fraud efforts in Pennsylvania, in Nevada, in North Carolina, and Georgia. They kept the fraud from happening to a large extent, which has enabled them to win, right? So, so what's happening here is, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, finish.
So what's happening here is, they're getting called on their untruths, right? People know they're lying, right? They've been really exposed in some bad lies, and now they don't have the credibility to do what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I pay some attention to what happens in South Korea, but I don't do the deep dive. So I decided, let me look into here to President Yol. So he won election in 2022, just barely. He lost parliamentary elections in April, but he's been hanging on. That he did have this is very typical in Korea, they accepted his wife allegedly accepted a luxury Dior handbag and some stock manipulation. South Korean politics, apparently, I think that tends to be the norm, is that there's a lot of stuff and corruption that goes on in there.
Yeah.
But here's what it says about him. So he was actually a prosecutor, and he came to fame for prosecuting the previous president, Park Geun-hye, in 2016. So he only won the vote by 1%. So he was kind of hanging on there, but he did take a hawkish stance on North Korea, and he was anti-feminist, but he has had his gaffes and things like that. So he doesn't have a clear mandate as part of the problem. Macron had the same problem, I think, too, is that and he had to cobble together a coalition government to be able to have a government. And so now you're making, you've got to have the left and you got to have the right and do this. And that's always kind of tenuous. We have talked, I don't know how many times on this program over the last several years about these countries that run on a parliamentary system.
And weakness of the parliamentary system.
And what happens, right? It's like, you do this, you have this system, and it's very tenuous. Some countries like, Korea has like one, I think, 5-year term. Some countries have, 1 7-year term or whatever. But if your government collapses and other things happen, we saw what happened in Great Britain, is that you can call for an early election, hoping that you can kind of rebuild things. We remember what already happened, in Great Britain before, right, with Theresa May.
Right.
She botched that.
Yeah, she called a snap election and lost badly.
Yeah. Rishi Sunak, he was already in trouble. I don't know, I guess you call the election a little bit early. It was only just the inevitable. It's just go ahead.
Right. Sunak knew he was going to lose.
Yeah, and and they got crushed, royally crushed there. But maybe the Tories find a way to rebuild from that, and the liberals in the UK, they don't have an easy time governing, because there's a lot of problems there that they may not be able to fix, that will give the Tories
their policies are the cause of. right?
Yeah.
Their views on immigration and what to do with these immigrants and how to deal with all that is really roiled England, really hurt the property values, prosperity of the country. And the left is married to that. They're completely in bed with all that. So, I don't think that the current people there, but I don't know. I mean, that's a place where, they don't accept that they're wrong very easily, right? They will have to get, things will have to get a lot worse before they say, yeah, we need to fix stuff.
Yeah. And I see, coming out of the UK, I mean, talking about the dire situation with their finances and stuff like that. So they will, they're going to pull the levers of government, and tax increases are going to be, one of their things. Liberals love to raise taxes, but that is going to be a huge detriment to the citizens, in Great Britain, and that gives the Tories a path to rebuild and come back there, once again. So the weakness of the parliamentary system also is, there's the other part of it too, is that I'm fascinated by it in the sense of, like, because of the ebb and flow of the government. It's like, okay, so they're elected, but will they stay in power for 3 years, 5 years, or 7 years? Will they last the entire term, or will they go out? And sometimes you can
how do you make a deal with that when you don't even know how reliable the person on the other side of the deal is, right?
Right. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, particularly, I mean, if you're a world leader negotiating things with these guys, it's like you're looking down the line. You're like, okay, so this is, the process of what we're dealing with, whatever the issue is a multi-year kind of a thing that it'll take years before we see everything come to fruition.
Right.
But if you've got people that are in these countries that have, where they could call election at any time, you're like, well, is this really going to hold? Because if they lose, the other party comes in, they could completely dismantle it, and then all the time we spent on it and everything we did on it just blows up in our face. It isn't any good anymore. I mean, look at Israel. I mean, they have just been hanging on by the skin of their teeth to try to keep a government together. It's just, it's lots of, I don't know. I mean, I think we see with a parliamentary system, you get these now the governments are very weak and they're treading water, and we don't know where they're going. In most cases, this is it will take one little thing and it'll tip it going the other way. And that, in France, I think Marine Le Pen Le Pen wants nothing better to find a way to path for her to become the president, right? I think that's her goal, and so as a result,
so she's on every one of these things, right? And her allies are people who are never going to support her for prime minister, for president, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the people who voted with her to sink the government yesterday will not vote for her for president under any circumstances. So she has the power to disrupt, but she doesn't really have the power to fix it, and she probably never will.
Yeah, and so, and they probably have more power in Parliament than they've ever had before. They've had more success, and they have more influence on the government now than they've ever had before. They can build on that, and find a candidate from their party that's more palatable, but it's not Marine Le Pen. She's not the one that would get widespread support. But
I've never even heard of whoever's behind her, right?
Yeah, and I don't know who who winds up doing this. Macron spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to find a prime minister to run, to be there. And now, they're saying, well, we have no confidence in whatever, and now they want to form another government. This is not good for France. It's an interesting time as to where it comes. Here with Trump, less than 50 days from taking office. What is that? What is France going to be doing in the meantime? Is South Korea going to kind of settle down? Part of South Korea's problem, and I noticed this, visiting there, 20 years ago, is just that you do have a lot of young left wingers there. It is this country that has got the young people, the students have been kind of the far left, and the older people are much more conservative. So you do have a very big difference in terms of how they vote. And they don't have any problem protesting on college campuses and doing things there. And so they have to find a way to kind of keep those younger people they're still churning them out. But I mean, it's been 20 years since I've been there. So now even the college kids that I saw protesting, now what? They're in their 40s.
Yeah,
you know?
that's right.
So now they're getting to that middle age part, and if they're still thinking kind of left wing politics, and the older people that are dying off, the conservatives, this could be a long term problem for South Korea in terms of how their stances. They need to stand strong against North Korea, and it is a bit of a concern to me still that you get these people in there, and all of a sudden you start seeing more cracks, and they're saying like, well, we can do this, we can do that with North Korea, and then things really start to go down the toilet really, really quickly on this. I understand a lot of the sensibilities. There's still a lot of people around who are wanting to have answers about their relatives in North Korea. Where are they buried? Whatever happened to them? All of these kinds of things that people are still looking for reunification and whatnot. But when you're dealing with North Korea, you are dealing with a communist dictator. So just like, do not forget that.
Right. It is not terribly rational, although he seems to have some rational people around him.
All right. So
they talk a lot of crazy stuff, but they don't actually do it. So
right.
They're as provocative as you can be without ever taking action.
True. That's right. It's like I just don't want it to upset my K-drama schedule or anything.
I gotcha.
Don't stop production. I waste too much time on it, but whatever.
Right. But if you stop K-pop, I think most of the music world will thank you. Anyway.
It was I don't know. It's so when you just mentioned K-pop, so Dick Wolf, who I think is the kind of the master of television shows, ripping things from the headlines, right? And they always have that kind of disclaimer. It doesn't really have anything to do with any particular person or real life or whatever. But they are looking at the headlines and writing the stories based on that. And they just did an episode of, I don't know, I guess it was Law and Order or whatever. It was on K-pop, in America and stuff like that. It's like, so he stays culturally significant with all of these things.
Reading the paper, man, it's all there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's sometimes I watch some of this because I'm like, okay, so where is he going with this? I've got to go back over an FBI episode because I'm like, when I saw this, I detected that the whole campus demonstration thing was being very favorable to the pro-Hamas side, the way they portrayed that before they got onto the other part of the storyline. There's another episode that's also dealing with campus protest, also with the whole Jewish Hamas type of thing like this. So I'm like, I need to take a look at this and say, where is this going? He's trying to say this has nothing to do with any particular incidents, and yet they show all these tents and some Hamas signs, and then they start kind of having like a mini debate about who's right, Israel or the protesters. You're like, yeah, wait a minute, now you have a viewpoint here, and you're taking entertainment. You're not a news show, but you're putting the news into the entertainment and trying to convince how many ever millions or
whatever that's right.
Right. So which has been a big pet peeve of mine for decades. One last international thing too is Aleppo. So Aleppo has been recaptured by the Islamist, these militants, rebel group. Thoughts? I mean, where does that leave Russia and Assad and all these kind of things? And
Obviously, I think that the Assad regime is under more pressure than it's ever been. I think they're finally, the rod has reached the point where they may be in some trouble. I'm not sure they have a lot of, Russia has a lot of bandwidth to help them. So they may not get help there. And, you can end up with where you have a base for a really radical bunch of people. I don't think that will be allowed to survive beyond too far beyond January 20th.
All right. I want to move on to a couple more things which is one, obviously, which we need to talk about is President Biden has pardoned Hunter. Even though he said he would never do it, he has done it. And I don't know, I'm somewhat enjoying the liberals trying to explain this and explain themselves. The president trying to explain himself on this. Karine Jean-Pierre trying to explain the president's position on this. Joy Reid.
Really anything.
I mean, there's just not a lack of videotape or film or whatever you want to call it, on showing what liberals thought about pardons from 2020 and other presidents versus versus what Joe Biden did. Now, all Democrats aren't on board, but it's really created a problem, I think, for a lot of liberal Democrats, especially after Joe had said he wasn't going to do this.
Yeah, I think that this is they don't realize this, but like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what will be remembered of the Biden presidency is that it was corrupt, and at the end, when the guy was about to go to jail, he went to his dad and said, "If you let me spend the night in jail, I'm going to tell everybody about the whole Biden crown family and how everybody got their money, and I'll be in jail, but all you guys will still be working for a living because your source of income will be gone." And so that's why he got pardoned. He played his card at the end. I think his hearing was supposed to be yesterday. His sentencing would have been yesterday. So he waited till the last minute, and he's like, "I'm not messing around. I will out every one of you if you don't if you don't get me out of it." So. There's no honor among these people. They're criminals from the jump. That's never going to change. That never did change. And I don't know. I think that it's a thing that we can take advantage of forever, and it does. And they keep saying, "Well, Trump pardoned his daughter's family or whatever, dad or whatever for going after hookers or something." And it's like, that's not espionage. That's not selling policy outcomes of the U.S. government that your dad delivers, right? Did Trump pardon any of those people to protect Trump from criminal exposure? No, he did not, right? Biden pardoned Hunter to protect criminal exposure. I don't think it was always their plan. I don't think that's true. I think that Biden was intent on letting this go down until Hunter made it clear that he would blow up the family business.
Yeah, it's a little suspicious that we got to this point, to just before
2 days before sentencing,
right?
And say, "Oh, it doesn't have anything to do with sentencing." Excuse me, yeah, it does. It has everything to do with sentencing.
Yeah, and what did President Biden say about this? It was did he say politicized or something?
Because they're going to politicize. They also said. No, he also makes the absolutely risible claim that nobody not named Biden would have been charged for any of this. If your name wasn't Biden, if me and you had a laptop that had that stuff on it, we'd be going to prison for giving drugs and sex to minors, and as well as tax evasion and gun charges and all kind of other stuff. So he didn't get off heavy. He got off extremely light. So, I mean, even in the case that, that was pursued, and now he gets nothing at all. But this was to keep the heat off of Biden, to keep the heat off of Joe and let the money flow to the rest of the family. I mean, we're talking tens of millions of dollars here. This is how these people live. This is their job. This is their source of income, is grifting off of Joe. I mean, he was a small state, senator, right? No real, he's in a state. It's a safe seat. No Democrats no Republicans going to beat him. They're not going to primary him because he's a proven winner, right? So he sat there for 40 years just selling the office to whoever would buy it. And no one really paid any attention because he's a Democrat. So, someone finally, you get him to become president. Yeah, it did get noticed, right? They were buying favors all over the world with our policy outcomes, right? They get the money. We have the policy outcomes to deal with. Part of the reason we're in Ukraine right now is because, they played ball with the Ukraine thugs, right? The Biden and his son both. He's on the board of a energy company, doesn't know anything about energy, doesn't know anything about being on corporate boards, but he's strangely on there at just the right time to fire the prosecutor who's trying to prosecute that company. So, and the prosecutor disappears. And Joe says publicly, well, I told them if they didn't get rid of the prosecutor, we were not going to give them the money that the president had ordered be given to them. Right. So we're undoing an order of the president unless you fire the guy who's investigating the company that my son makes $83,000 a month, even though he doesn't know a clue about what he's doing. Right. That is straight quid pro quo. No, this will go down as just a sorry, criminal, terrible administration.
Yeah. I mean, presidents have issued pardons for a long time. There's a long list of presidential pardons, and they cover the gamut.
Right.
But
by definition, you're usually dealing with scumbags, right?
Yeah, they're not. As an ordinary citizen, I'm like, you're pardoning this person, but well, you have the authority. It's going to be done. I can't do anything about it. So it's what's done is done. But this might have to go down as one of the worst or most egregious presidential pardons in history, because based on the timing and the nature of the charges and everything like that,
and the culpability of the president.
Yeah, to do all of this at that time, just kind of it just kind of stinks. But I saw somebody had posted a video of one of our favorite people, Joy Reid, in 2020, railing about the Trump pardons, and I guess it was to Jared Kushner's dad and things like that. And now 2024, it's like Joe Biden has a perfect right to pardon his son, right?
Yeah. There was I guess Bill D'Agostino, MRC, did a great video of splicing together the hypocrisy.
Yeah, the hypocrisy.
They're all for it when it helps their guy, and they're totally against it if it helps Trump.
Right, but when you have Democrats that get kind of caught flat-footed, they're like, we can't support this, or we don't know. I mean, the Washington Post, their editorial, chastised Biden for doing this, partially on the argument that he's now given cover to Trump, which they think which they don't appreciate. But this was anything from the Washington Post like that is you can see that things just
that's their argument. That's their argument. But you know what? Trump doesn't need their cover. He couldn't care less about their cover.
No, right? But I wonder,
it'll be a talking point when he starts pardoning the people he's going to pardon, right? Which I expect there to be hundreds, if not thousands, of pardons in the first week of his administration, right? Because he said he's going to pardon a lot of people. And I think they're working through that now. But, he could say, well, yeah, the other guy pardoned his son to keep himself out of trouble. That'll help him nominally, in that exchange. But, Trump's going to do what he's going to do. They can't stop him.
It's just interesting when you get something like that from the Post these days, because we had the whole thing where the Post decided they weren't going to endorse, right? And Jeff Bezos gets in there. Liberals go crazy because they're like, you can't do this. You can't not endorse someone for president, especially Kamala. Like this. And Bezos has been somewhat complimentary towards Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Also another thing that just rankles liberals.
Yeah.
Now an editorial comes out that's it's not pro-Trump per se, but it does kind of go after Biden a little bit. So it's kind of like there's a few things that are changing a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like,
but it's driving them nuts. The LA Times Then they put Scott Jennings on the editorial board. You know, the people are like, how can you give him a voice? It's like, why shouldn't he have a voice? You know, it's like you think you own this stuff and that you should be able to do this. So the people who oppose you are never heard. That's what they're arguing for. We get to say what we want. You are never heard. Right?
Yep. Okay. So we got a couple of nominations that are interesting. I mean, that are still talking about. Kash Patrl, FBI. I mean, what do you think about? I mean, will he get? Does he stand a chance of getting confirmed?
I don't think there's any any Republicans who are going to oppose him. I think they're going to give him that one. Hegseth is another story.
Yeah, the Patel thing, I find interesting because he's out there calling out the deep state, right? I mean, he's just putting it out there front and center, and I'm like,
yep.
And I do love this whole thing. It's like, we're going to empty out the FBI building in DC and we're going to send them out because they're cops. They got to do the job. It's like, yeah, it does, because then it makes sense. Yeah, you know, we got. They said what? He said what? They have 7,000 people at the J. Edgar Hoover building.
Yeah, Main Justice. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are go and put them out in the field more? How many of those people are actually doing the work that needs to be done? I mean, there's things that probably need to be done at headquarters. Okay, I was like, but it's just
the answer is not zero, but you know, you got 7,000 people in there. There's probably some of those people need to be out investigating crimes.
Yeah. So once again, you have this kind of common theme that going through the the future Trump administration of like, we need to we need to work on government and either cut people or make it more efficient or do something, and I hope and pray that they're actually able to make some progress on this front. This is not going to be an easy task. Eliminate the Department of Education, all these kind of things. Not going to be easy, but I laud them for trying to make an effort.
Yeah, try to go big, right?
Yeah.
If you only take down 3/4 of the Department of Education, not good, but better than what we have now.
That's right.
The FBI, that stall must be mucked, right, from stem to stern. Right, there's not a lot of people there who are worth keeping at this point. Right, the percentage of those, everybody said, well, the rank and file are, I don't know about that. Right, I think every single person there needs a good hard look see. So, and I think about 3 layers down below the appointed Senate confirmable people, pretty much all got to go. Right, they're politicized. They support the other party. They will undermine Trump if they're allowed to stay. The thing is to get in there and clean house. Right, it's better to fire too many than too few. And I think he's set up to do that. He doesn't have any friends who are going to stop him from it, who's going to slow him down, cool him off, all that. It's going to be straight ahead. And I think that's what they want. The other thing is like, people are concerned about like Kristi Noem, at DHS and a few of these other people. And it's like, don't worry about that, because policy is going to be run out of the White House to an extent that has never probably been done before. Right? Those people, most of them are almost figureheads anyway.
All right. I haven't been. I meant to go and follow up on this, and I didn't do it because I remember seeing one thing, kind of float by, which was for Secret Service, was Dan Bongino. Did you see anything else about anybody? Did he, for heading the Secret Service?
I haven't. I don't think they've appointed anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were talking about Bongino.
Thoughts on having a Bongino-like guy?
In Secret Service, obviously, you need a lot of appointees, right? Actually, you think about it, like Hegseth, like the business stuff he's tried to do has been kind of a mess, right? But that's not really the case with Bongino. The stuff he's tried to do has made some money, right? He's gotten to be a pretty wealthy guy. So he may be a little more organized and able to be effective in that, right? And somebody needs to do it. And he's experienced. And I think everybody knows, every single person knows that a house cleaning is needed there and is coming.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I wonder if people like that will actually, jump at the chance to do that. Are they comfortable where what they're doing? They're kind of their bully pulpit. But I think having a Dan Bongino kind of guy who would clean house would be a good thing, because
Yeah.
it's just a mess right now.
Yeah. It's a rot. I mean, it's been allowed to be rot for a long time now, since about, the late 80s. And it's just gotten to an amount of rot that's not tolerable anymore. And so this is, it's going to get uprooted. It's going to happen whether they like it or not.
All right. You meant we're going to close this out here with Pete Hegseth. You mentioned him. Polymarket's got him at 21% confirmation possibility. That's just Polymarket. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it just seems that there's more and more accusations being thrown out on a regular basis.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Tell me what accusation has come out about Pete Hegseth that has named sources on it.
Yeah.
Right. Not, as far as I know, none. Okay. So the people who put their name with the accusation say it's not true. People who are anonymous sources from leftist news organizations say it is true. So are we going to really let leftist anonymous sources tell us who can be Secretary of Defense? I don't know this guy, right? He says, people say, well, there's been problems with drinking. And he said, if you make me Secretary of Defense, I will not drink at all while I'm Secretary of Defense. If you find out he's lying, you can take steps to do something with him. But, right now, he is being torpedoed based solely on anonymous sources, right? And we ought to look and just say it's not anonymous sources, right? So the other thing that's happening to Hegseth is Joni Ernst is I think she's the 95th richest senator, and she would like to move up in the rankings. And torpedoing Hegseth could help her do that in a number of ways, one of which she's not the last person in the world they'd probably consider for the post herself. The other is she'd get out of the Senate and work for the weapon makers, right? The weapons companies, defense contractors, because she nuked the guy who was going to clean up the system, right? So, she is on a campaign to nuke this guy. And so she's elevating all this anonymous stuff for her own aims, right? I think people need to understand that, this senator is kind of out of line here. And if she has something that's proven, let's see it. But right now it looks like you're trying to torpedo a guy for reasons that have to do with you and not the good of the country, and that you don't have the information to do it.
So, I mean, I guess a couple of things. I mean, will he get out of committee? And if he does, can he get the full confirmation, or is it going to be at 50-50 and Vance is going to come in there and break the tie?
It may be, it'll be close, but I think he will get confirmed. I think that the momentum is behind them right now. And I think that they gave them Getz, right? Yeah, okay, we're not going to do Getz. We've signed off of Getz. They signed off a DEA guy, right? They got off of him because he was too closely allied with leftists and did some stuff he wasn't supposed to do. So they got to go get a new DEA guy, which I'm sure they will. But they're not. We're not letting the other side pick up this time. We made that mistake before, and we're not doing it again.
All right. With that, let's take it to the end.
Take it to the end. Let's see what's on here. The Tennessee. So that hearing, there's a law in Tennessee that says you cannot do sex change surgery to kids under 18. It looks like, based on the utter destruction of the Solicitor General in that hearing yesterday, that the Supreme Court is going to uphold the Tennessee law. The D'Souza, right, the 2,000 mules. So he's saying the geospatial data he got was not accurate. Okay, so I want people to understand a lot of the drop boxes that they identified. They then went and videoed the drop box and watched people fraudulently putting in votes. Those people were really fraudulently putting in votes. There's nothing that he revealed compromises any of that, right? So, the geospatial thing happened to be right some and wrong some, and the right ones are right, okay? So he doesn't really know how much he can say. Let's see. I think that the AOC 2028. I think that the Democrats are more likely to put a white guy in this time than the Republicans are, the next candidate at this point. They can't, no more, idiots and, people who appeal to boutique audiences. They can't do that anymore. Let's see what it's on here. The Ohio State Michigan brawl. That was a very strange day of college football. So like all these rivalry games, and the visiting team won, and they tried to plant their flag and the logo of the home team. It was like, me and Marty were watching it on TV, and I'm like, Marty, look, there's a bunch of brawls. And there was like ESPN went through, it was like 6 different games. There were brawls over basically the same thing. So, no flag in their logo. That's not necessary. Just win your game, shake your hands, move on. But it's this thing now. It's a fad, and they're going to have to do something about it.
All right. Well, with that, we will close it out. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. And I'll be traveling next week to go visit my new grandson. So we'll be off, and then we'll be back. Yeah, we'll be back for I said it was our final show the week after that, right? The 19th.
The 19th is the final show of the year.
Final show of the year. And then I've got another grandson coming in January, and that might alter in mid-January, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Okay. All righty. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. We'll see you again.